Oh, hello! Today we are talking about all of the advanced reader copies that I read in 2021. These are books that I got in advance of the actual publication date to read for review. Most of these I got from a publisher. I got, I think, one from an author directly. So what this does is it gives authors and publishers a chance to get publicity for upcoming releases from reviewers. And there's a lot of different ways that you can get these copies. Mostly I get mine through NetGalley because it's sort of like passive, a way for me to get them. But also publishers are frequently reaching out directly to kind of pitch books. And when there is one that is of interest to me, I will say, yes, go ahead and send that to me. So that is how you get those copies. And I always feel like part of the responsibility of getting those is making sure that I am frequently letting you guys know how I feel about them, what I think are particular standouts versus things that I don't connect with as much. I do think that it's been interesting to watch myself over the last few years as I have gotten a better sense of what I do and don't like from the front list. Some of that I think is also just like evolving tastes, obviously, but I think also I've just gotten better at accurately predicting what front list books I'm going to enjoy. So subsequently, I don't read as many advanced reader copies as I did, I guess, like 3 years ago when I sort of went hog wild. I don't read quite as many. I expect that I'll read even fewer next year. I think I'm getting better about being selective, but it also means that I tend to enjoy what I do request more and more and more. So with that being said, I thought this year the way that we could kind of approach this particular video would be I will give you the full ranking. That will be sort of the meat of the video, but rather than really talking about a lot of them, I thought I would give you some stats. And I also thought that I would kind of pause over the ones like my top 3 basically that I really, really recommend, that I really, really enjoyed. And yeah, we can just kind of do it this way this year, something a little bit different. Okay, so in terms of stats, I did read a total of 56 advanced reader copies that came out in 2021, and the average rating that I gave to those books was 3.66 stars, which for me is somewhere between a B plus and an A minus. A 3.5 is a B plus, a 4 stars and A minus for me. But the most frequent rating I gave this year was a 4 star. So I gave 22 4 stars. Now I should say, for advanced copies or things that I'm reading for review, if I'm between 2 ratings, I do defer to the higher rating because I just feel like that's fairer for books that are I want to be as supportive as possible for books that are coming out in terms of being able to be as generous to them as possible. So I always defer to a higher rating. So I'm sure some of those 4 stars were probably between a 3.5 and a 4, but I deferred to a 4, but still, that's like really, really good. That's better than it has been in past years. And those 22 books comprise a good chunk of the 4 stars that I've given out this year in general. So I felt like that was great. You can see that it is a nice bell curve with the top of the bell being at a 4 star. I had 1 5-star advanced reader copy and I had 2 2.5 stars. So those are sort of the extremes, and everything else just falls on a nice little bell curve. I should also say that of those 56 books, there's really only one of them that I would not recommend, which was my very last place book, which was A History of What Comes Next. I was between a 2 and a 2.5 star, but I went with the 2.5 per that earlier rule I was mentioning. And I just think the writing was kind of rough in this one. And I don't know. It's just one that if you align with my taste, I probably would say that this is not one you would enjoy, but do with that what you will. And in terms of percentage, I gave a 5 star to 1.8% of books. I gave a 4.5 star to 8.9% of the books. I gave a 4 star to 39.3% of the books. I gave a 3.5 star to 30.4% of the books. A 3 star to 16% of the books. And a 2.5 star to 3.6% of the books. So that is sort of the distribution there. In terms of when books were coming out, this is generally true, but I think even more so true in 2021, and actually I guess 2020. I tend to read a lot of ARCs earlier in the year rather than later. And the last 2 years, that has particularly been exacerbated by books getting pushed out due to supply chain issues. So like most industries, the publishing industry is having supply chain issues, particularly sourcing paper, it seems like. And therefore, there's been a lot of releases that were scheduled for 2021 that are slipping into 2022. And I think we're particularly seeing that in Q4. So you can see I read basically the same number of books for Q1, Q2, and Q3, but a drastic drop in Q4. And like I said, I think that's pretty typical in general, just of the books that I'm interested in reading when they come out in the year, but also I think that's indicative of supply chain issues. And then just in terms of sourcing, I thought this might be fun to look at. So about 84% of the books that I read that were ARCs, I got from NetGalley. Now, I didn't keep track of which of these I was auto-approved for versus which ones I had to actively request, but basically what that means is 84% of these books, I was the initiator of asking for the book, versus 16% were pitched to me, which I think makes sense because most of the time I am the one doing the research on what books I am interested in reading for the upcoming release year, and I'm kind of putting in the legwork to get a copy of it if I'm interested in it. But about 16% of the time, it is a pitch to me from a publisher. I think that makes sense. I do get pitched a lot. The volume of emails, I don't know, I'd be interested to hear from other content creators, but like basically as your subscriber count grows and also as your number of Goodreads friends grows, the amount of pitching that happens to you goes up exponentially, I feel like. So it's I can't even respond to all of the emails I get asking me to read books. So I try to be selective in the things that I'm like getting pitched to me, because if I said yes to everything, it would be all I read. And I don't want that to be the case. I also like to read old books. So anyway, just a little inside baseball moment there for you. But yes, anyway, 16% of the books that I read in advanced reader copies were pitched to me. So yeah, overall, I feel like pretty solid stats this year. I'm feeling, if you can't tell, I'm feeling really good about how things went. I'm hoping to continue discernment into next year so that I continue to be selective about what books that I am asking for, and also just to make sure that I give those books their due time if I get them. So those are some stats for you. And now I'm going to throw you to the meat of this video, which is the ranking of all 56 of these books that I read through advanced reader copies for 2021.
A History of What Comes Next by Sylvain Neuvel. The Stowaway by James Murray and Darren Wearmouth. Bullet Train by Kotaro Isaka. Meant to be Immortal by Lindsay Sands. The Conductors by Nicole Glover. The Runaway Heiress by Meg Tilly. The Last Guest by Tessa Little. Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. A Lady's Formula for Love by Elizabeth Everett. The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. Down Comes the Night by Allison Saft. The Project by Courtney Summers. Love at First by Kate Claiborne. The Duke Undone by Joanna Lowell. Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. A Dark and Secret Place by Jen Williams. On Location by Sarah Smith. Beasts and Beauty by Soman Chenani. Holly Jolly Cowboy by Jessica Clare. All the Feels by Olivia Dade. Quiet in Her Bones by Nalini Singh. The Bachelor Cowboy by Jessica Clare. Fireheart Tiger by Aliette de Bodard. Legacy by Nora Roberts. Burning Girls and Other Stories by Veronica Chenoz. The Chosen and the Beautiful by Nhi Vo. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. Anne of Manhattan by Brina Starler. Well Matched by Jen DeLuca. The Ivies by Alexa Dunn. The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Dannon. Her Last Holiday by C.L. Taylor. Dead Dead Girls by Nikesia Afia. Across the Green Grass Fields by Shauna McGuire. The Girl from Shadow Springs by Ellie Cipher. The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. Battle Royal by Lucy Parker. A Master of Gin by P. DeJelly Clark. To Love and to Loathe by Martha Waters. For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. How to Kill Your Best Friend by Lexi Elliott. The X-Hex by Aaron Sterling. The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. A Lot Like Adios by Alexis Daria. Say Goodbye by Karen Rose. Fugitive Telemetry by Martha Wells. The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. Last Guard by Nalini Singh. The Love Con by Saricia Glass. Every Last Fear by Alex Finlay. Highland Treasure by Lindsay Sands. Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. The Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood.
Okay, and then coming back, I just want to say a little bit more about my top 3. Now, interestingly, I did read these 2 in 2021, but I actually read Act Your Age, Eve Brown in 2020. So I do start reading advanced reader copies the year before if they come out earlier in the year. So just another inside baseball moment for you. But number 3 is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert, which is the third in her Brown Sisters contemporary romance trilogy. And I just think I just really love Talia Hibbert and her writing. I think that this series was definitely her breakout series, and I really enjoyed all 3 of them. This is my second favorite of the 3. Take a Hint, Danny Brown is one of my all-time favorite contemporary romances, which is the second book, but this is also, I think, very strong entry in that trilogy. And basically this is with Eve, who is sort of the flighty sister who never seems to have her act together. And it's about her trying to get her act together kind of impulsively. And she ends up in sort of an accidental romance with this little innkeeper dude who is very uptight. This is definitely a Grump Sunshine kind of trope, which I am trash for if you know my reading tastes. And overall, this just made me smile. Very charming. I really love this entire trilogy. Very highly recommended. Number 2 is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. And I just love Grady Hendrix's writing. It's always very humorous and kind of meta from what I've read so far. I think this is the 3rd book I've read from him, maybe 2nd, 3rd, something like that. I just like the actual writing. It's very propulsive. I can never put these books down. They keep me up late if I have to get to them. And this one I think was a very meta sort of Scream-esque take on the final girl trope from the 80s and 90s slasher flicks. I think that this is a really enjoyable version of a serial killer book, which I absolutely love. I had a recent vlog talking about all the serial killer books I read this year. That was like a hot trope in thrillers, I feel like, this year. And yeah, I just really love this. It's very polarizing. I think some people really didn't like this book because they found it too unbelievable, but like it's a serial killer book, so I feel like some level of suspension of disbelief for me is kind of baked in, but you know, do with that what you will. But this was definitely my top 4.5-star book. I really, really enjoy this. Had a great time reading it. Highly recommend. And then my favorite arc I read this year was The Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood. I will tell you that I picked this one up kind of on a whim. This is a publisher I'm auto-approved with on NetGalley. So sometimes I'll go through those and just see like, oh yeah, okay, that does sound kind of good to me. And I picked it up because I believe I'd seen Jessica Clare, aka Ruby Dixon, talking about this one. It doesn't have blurbs on this edition, but she was talking about how much she enjoyed it. And so I was like, oh, anytime I see that will make me pick if I see an author I love talking about a book, that will make me pick it up. And so I was like, okay, yeah, this looks like a fake dating trope. I love that. It looks like STEM. Great. I gave this a 4.5 originally, and I bumped it up to 5 because I've already reread it. I've reread the whole thing once, and I've read the back half of it twice. This book does it for me. This is exactly my kind of contemporary romance. It's the exact right mix of sort of like emotion, but there's external conflict. It's another Grump Sunshine. It's fake dating, and he is just like, he will destroy people for her. And I love that because it started off as Kylo Ren and Rey fanfic and then got turned into a contemporary. He's very intense, and I was really into it, and I just love the writing itself is so good. I can't wait to read more from this author. This is just one of my all-time favorite contemporary romances. And I'm not alone in feeling this way. This has been so hard for people to get copies of because it's just been sold out everywhere, but it is well worth tracking down if this is your kind of book. It's definitely my kind of book, and it is definitely my personal favorite arc of the year. So there you go. That was ranking all of the arcs that I read in 2021. Definitely let me know what you thought of any of the books that we covered today. Let me know if you read front list, how your front list reading has gone this year. Like I said, mine has gone pretty well, I would say, all things considered. And yeah, I think that will do it for me. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. I hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!